group that's here tonight is a real honor to me, and I'm really happy that you're here. I just want to speak a few minutes, and then we have some very important awards to award. I'm getting very nervous right now. But anyway, oh good. I see a vision for the Gonstead system. The Gonstead system impacted my life about 20 years ago when I got my first adjustment. And I believe it changed my life physically, probably saved my life, quite honestly. But it also saved my professional life because I was very discouraged about chiropractic. I didn't really understand what chiropractic was. And when I got my first adjustment, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. But I didn't really understand what the Gonstead system was, and I kind of struggled around through school. And when I was out of school, I actually associated with the guy that did local basics. And not that that's a bad technique, but I don't think he was very good at it. But anyway, I was looking for something better, and I had a respect for the Gonstead system that was very high, and I'd sent some letters out once to the Gonstead clinic about looking for an associateship or an internship. And lo and behold, one day I got a letter from the Gonstead clinic that said they wanted me to come here and be an intern. And I was overwhelmed, so I came and I found out what chiropractic was all about, and literally it changed my life. So through the years, I've collected different ideas as I've watched. I became a member of the board of directors, and of course I've attended many seminars, and I've listened to Alex, and I've listened to Doug and Dr. Stoner, and Ray, and Bill Dressler, and even John. And through the years, I just kept hearing these ideas, and I would think, wow, that would be great, and then nothing would come of it. Not because the Gonstead seminar teachers weren't following through, but especially on the board of directors. We all have such busy practices. A lot of times we come up with good ideas, but it's hard to follow through. So I feel right now, at this time, this is my time to get back to the Gonstead system, and I see myself as a catalyst to bring together the best that there is in Gonstead, which in my opinion is the best that there is in the world. Recently, back in February, I went to a seminar out in Colorado, a total solutions seminar, where I purchased a subluxation station, which has an infrared thermometer unit, as well as a surface EMG. And it's a great unit, and it's, in a way, just another way to visualize what's going on and how the body's trying to compensate due to subluxation. But when I was there, I've been in Gonstead seminars so long, they're the only seminars I go to. And sometimes I feel it's a bit of a closed system, and we don't see what's going out. And some of you are educators, I realize that, but from my own limited point of view, I didn't really know what was going on in our profession. So it was a real eye-opener to me to see how the philosophy, which was real strong at that seminar, is being applied. There's really a lack of application of the art of chiropractic. And Dr. Juan was saying earlier today that the truth shall prevail, and I believe the Gonstead system in chiropractic is as good as it gets. So what I would like to see as we near the new millennium is that the Gonstead system takes its rightful place for the people of our planet. And I know that sounds pretty maybe high and mighty, but I really think it's true. I think it's time that we try to unify our efforts and get Gonstead chiropractic to the people. And that means to integrate the Gonstead system, at least the basic work of it, into the schools effectively, and also to try to communicate what Gonstead's all about. These young fellows from Sherman College were just telling me that people don't have a clue what Gonstead really is. There's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
Disinformation.
Yeah, disinformation. And I think we need to deal with that. That's exactly right. Thank you. That's the word that's floating around out there. But people need to know what Gonstead really is, and I think we need to tell them, and I think it's time we do that. You know, our journal has improved, and we can improve it a lot more. But it's being distributed more widely now. We send 50 copies to each college library in the world. We send 50 copies to each study club. And we've only been doing this for 2 issues. Our 3rd issue just came out, hasn't been distributed yet. And we have an international editorial board. I think we should wake up early. But anyway, we've been sending 50 copies to each one. I recently was in touch with a man that had been to a number of Gonstead seminars that's in South Africa, and he wants to distribute our journal to every chiropractor in South Africa. There's 140 of them, plus 100 to each of the 2 colleges down there. So I think if we keep working along those lines, we can disseminate the information, and people will find out what Gonstead's all about. And it will make so much sense to them that hopefully it will create change. Dr. Parker was talking about how change is so slow and how frustrating it is, and I agree with that. But I do think there are steps that we can take to try to accelerate that. So that's the vision that I have for Gonstead Chiropractic. Dr. Claudia had a vision called Field of Dreams a number of years ago. You're probably familiar with the movie. But that movie, if you watch it, really touches your heart about how somebody kind of hears a voice. But to them, it's their vision, and they follow their heart. And that's what I see for the Gonstead system. We started a Field of Dreams program where people gave $50 a month. And you know, the real heart of that is not the $50 a month. It's what Gonstead Chiropractic can do. And so we're developing a Field of Dreams 2002, and it's not to ask you to give money. Before, we were donating 2 adjustments a month, which averaged like $50 a month. You know, that's all well and good. But if people can afford $5 a month or whatever, I think people should contribute to that if they think the vision is worthy. So tomorrow evening, we're having the first Gonstead Summit, which the only purpose of that, and I'm using the word summit for lack of a better term, is to try to get the best of the Gonstead profession together and try to unify our vision. So that's what we're going to do. And the 4 topics that we have are, first of all, research. And there's a lot of real basic information about the Gonstead system that I believe to be true through and through, but it's never been tested, and I think we need to do that. So a lot of people have submitted ideas along those lines, and Dr. Plodder created a C document that had a lot of lines of investigation that we should do. But, you know, we can do research along a lot of lines, but if it doesn't relate to Gonstead, I don't think it will help the system grow. So for my own part, that's just my opinion of the direction that we ought to go. And we have a number of organizations in the U.S., and this makes me very nervous even to talk about it. You know, years ago there was a split. There's GMI and there's GCSS, and personally I think it's for the good of humanity. It's time to try to at least unify our vision of what needs to be done. And I don't mean one organization, but if they're going on one tangent, we're going on another tangent. I do believe that we ought to at least have a common vision and be on the same wavelength, so to speak. I think we can do a lot more and get a lot more done. And the contingent from Australia is here. I'm very happy that they're here. We have a representative from Sweden and, of course, Canada, and also Denmark. So each group has a part of that vision, and the United Kingdom, I'm sorry, my mind went blank. If we all have a common vision, if we can take part of that and using our own resources, try to develop that and work together. The other, I've already mentioned this, but the journal is a very effective tool, especially if we continue to distribute it. I don't know, have all of you seen the cover of the journal? Well, I like the idea of the globe, because that is the vision, and that's kind of metamorphosized from its initial design. But now on the cover it says subluxation, find it, accept it, correct it, and leave it alone. And to me, that's the cornerstone of the Gonstead system. And so to me, it's also a unifying principle. And I think everything we do ought to be along those lines. So in the journal, what I'd like to see is more contributions from our international members, but also from our USA members. You know, let's have a month, not a monthly, but each issue, let's have an article that deals specifically with either find it, accept it, correct it, or leave it alone. Like Dr. Alden was saying today, and I agree wholeheartedly, accept it and leave it alone are the hardest parts of the whole equation. So, you know, maybe those are areas we ought to focus on first. And these are just ideas off the top of my head. Also, integration into the colleges is probably maybe one of the most difficult issues, because each college and maybe different countries have different requirements for people to teach. And a lot of the colleges have people teaching that they have no idea. Maybe they've looked at a picture in the chapters and they're setting up, but in their mind they have no visualization of the biomechanics involved in what they're trying to accomplish. So that's probably maybe our biggest obstacle, but that's one of the topics for the summit, and for people just to be thinking ongoing about that. And the last, and again this makes me very nervous to bring up, the Gonstead seminar and the doctors here that teach it have been my mentors in chiropractic, and I respect them immensely. And they've done tremendous work for the Gonstead system, and also, in my opinion, the world. But I think in some way we need to get the Gonstead seminar out to more people. So if we could come up with ways to teach it in more locations, more often, I think that would be a very beneficial thing to get the Gonstead work to people that are already out in practice, which again is a very difficult thing. It's easier to teach folks when they're students. And but there's a phrase that Dr. Dole wrote in a book that he recently sent me, his new book, and it says, "The cause is worth the price." And I think that is a very profound statement. So anyway, to me, that's the goal in the next few years for the Gonstead Clinical Studies Society, to try to move towards these directions. And again, I'm really happy that our international members are here. And you know what? Dr. Walters is the one that, through a conversation we had with him a long time ago, I don't know if it was on email or I think it was on the telephone, but he said that, we need to have more international cooperation and try to defend the Gonstead system. Now, in one way, we don't really need to be defensive, but on the other hand, there's a lot of people that put Gonstead chiropractic down, and so one reason I think we need research in that direction is to think of basic principles. So, that's really about all I have to say, but I hope you would join me in that. On the plane up here, I went through some old board notes. We have some very talented board notes. There's some ideas I looked at from Dr. Mercer and Dr. Poe, Dr. Working, and Dr. Andre, of course, Claudia Andre and Dr. Ernst Andre. And Sean LaBelle has been very instrumental in a lot of these ideas that have developed. Dr. David Rowe, I noticed his name kept coming up on these ideas that I wrote down, but I wrote down 48 ideas that have never been followed through on that I thought were really worthy of attention. So if we could even prioritize those and do half of them, I think we'd make a quantum leap in the advancement of the Gonstead system. So that's the direction the Gonstead system is moving in. We also have a goal of having 2,000 members by the year 2000, which right now, mistakenly, in our journal, so we have 750 members. But that number was from students and doctors in another category that got combined around computers. So really, we have 485 members, which, as you may already know, 2 years ago we had 300. Especially this year, we have 400 and 485 now. And this goal of 2,000 by 2000 again was Dr. Claudia's idea. But I think it's a very, very worthy goal, and I think probably we could achieve that if we really tried, because we have a lot of talented people here. But I would ask that you join us in this vision, and if you have an interest, and we'll be publicizing these different ideas, if you have an interest in taking on one of them, at least in part, let us know, because we need your help. I've only had like 4 hours of sleep in the last few days because I have a very hard time delegating. But that's my own problem. But all I'm saying is we need your help. But towards the end, creating a common vision, I handed this out to our members that have been supporting our Field of Dreams program today, because they have been the heart and soul of our research program. And by the way, we are, if you want to participate, I'll just talk about later. Not this evening, but another day. But also our international members, tomorrow night at the Summit, I'm going to hand out this poster. And it's got our journal cover, which has the global perspective. And it has the Field of Dreams theme, which is Build It and They Will Come. And also it has the Gonstead touchstone, again, subluxation, find it, accept it, correct it, leave it alone, which is summarized on here just for space sake, for design sake. But I think if people can put this up where they spend most of their time in their practice and keep it before their eyes, it will help be a constant reminder of what we're really trying to do. So, again, I ask you to join with us in that worthy goal, and I believe if we would focus our efforts that in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe we would see an acceleration of the change towards what the truth really is. And so that's all I really have to say tonight. We have some very important awards to present, and but first of all, I'd like to invite the members or a representative of the Monterey Bay Group to come up because they have a presentation that they'd like to make. So here comes Dr. Johnson and Dr. Martin and Dr. Thornton. I'm very honored.
Okay, great. It's a great honor to be able to contribute in a small way to the works of all the members of the GCSS, particularly board members and the doctors here. It looks like they're clustered up here in the front together. And the Monterey Bay Gonstead Clinical Studies Society has asked us to present a check for $1,000 again, and we've been chipping in checks for 1,000, 2,000 for a while. And we do seminars and workshops for doctors and students Central California area. And it's a real win-win-win, and it's really a great idea. And I understand that you're doing one as well. And I would encourage you to form local groups and do this. It's a great way to improve adjusting skills and analytical skills for doctors in their offices, one-on-one, and generate some money. So I'd like to present this check for $1,000. I'd like it to be more, but we spent it. But
we have a number of regional groups in the USA, and these guys are the most active. They set the pace. We have a new group out in Phoenix, the Valley of the Sun group. We have one down where I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Tennessee. Some people call it the Bluegrass Group, but it's really the Blue Ridge Gonstead Clinical Studies Society. But they asked that we would divide this money, $500 to the college fund for our students and $500 to research. So again, I want to thank you very much for that. Dr. Sean LaBelle is going to say a few words about the recipient, who unfortunately is not here, but the club that he represents is.
the Julian Ho Student of the Year Award was named after a man who was a pretty unique individual. He was a guy that was never really in the front, never really got up and was in the limelight or anything like that. He was a guy that always was working behind. He took the skills that he had, the computer talents, the fine detail stuff, and he basically made things happen. And Julian passed away last year unexpectedly, but we decided to give an award posthumously to him last year. And this year it goes to a young man who was also a life student at one time, but through some circumstances became a Sherman College student. And went to Sherman where there really was no club, there was no real understanding of Gonstead at all. And he came with a burning fire and a burning passion, and right from the get-go, just started it off. And I was privileged to help these guys do a certification test just this last weekend. And these guys are sharp. I mean, their school is maybe not as large comparatively to some of the others around the nation, but the quality that these guys have is a direct reflection. Dr. Ozzie Mark, who's not here right now, but I'm going to have Dr. Dale Thorstensen come up and give a word or two about him. So here's Dale.
I'm very proud to be up here accepting this award on behalf of Dr. Mark. And a couple of things I want to say here. I think Dr. Mark affected a lot of lives when he came up to Sherman College. I know for myself, and I know when I say this, that I'm speaking on behalf of at least 40 to 60 students who at the time when Ozzie came up really had no idea what chiropractic was all about. And I was in my fourth quarter when Dr. Mark came up, and I always knew in my heart that the chiropractic principle was correct, but I wasn't seeing any verification of that being the truth. And I was getting very disheartened by everything that went on around me, and didn't know where to go with chiropractic. And when Ozzie came on campus, it was really easy to see that there was a man that was very much different from other people on campus. And for those of you in here who know Dr. Mark, you know what I'm talking about. And this man has some amazing commitment in everything he does. And I know for myself and everybody else, we learn amazing things when Ozzie was around. So for me to be up here and accept this award today for Dr. Mark is a big honor. I know he appreciates this award. So thank you.
I just wanted to say about this award that we tried to nominate people from different regions of the country for the Student of the Year award, but Ozzy's done a lot of work, and he was one of the best friends of Julian Ho, who was our recipient last year of the Student of the Year award. And I don't know if you all knew Julian, but he was one of the most pleasant people to ever be around. If you saw him, you may not recognize him because he always had a camera in front of his face. In fact, when we gave him the award, we had him come up. He thought he was going to be taking a picture, and it turned out that he received the award. It was very shocking and tragic when we learned that he had passed away. And so we decided to create a scholarship fund, which BCSS has been wanting to do anyway, in his memory. So this year is the first year that we are awarding that, and the amount is only $500 now, but we expect that to grow. We have some a raffle right now. $5 tickets at Gonstead seminar will be awarded whoever the lucky person is tomorrow evening. So those tickets are available tomorrow in the registration office. And all the proceeds will go to the Julian Ho Memorial Scholarship Fund. His father has said that he will match up to $1,000 a year in all donations towards that fund. And I hope at some point the interest will, perpetuate this, and we can continue to think of some products, not only just for a small amount, but to have a very, very large endowment and scholarship fund for students that study the Gonstead system as time goes on. That's also part of the future of the GCSS. So thank you again for coming up. And by the way, Ozzy has donated the $500 back to the Sherman Gonstead Study Club. So now, Dr. Claudia, I'm going to have you come up because the Educator of the Year Award is always a very exciting award to me because it represents people that have donated a lot of their time and effort to the cause of helping people find a direction and get better at helping other people.
The Educators Award, the last 7 years that the Board of Directors have chosen different individuals who have committed time, energy. They've given back to the colleges. They've given back to the seminars. They've just always been very, very highly involved. This year, the Board of Directors had a difficult time making a selection because one group of individuals came to our mind that have constantly given at one time or another. And I'd like to share a little bit about the history of this group. They were actually the first subgroup of the Gonstead Clinical Study Society, and it was a group of doctors, a nucleus of individuals who actually ended up, many of them, co-founding the Gonstead Clinical Study Society on a national level. It actually started you know how some things start off in the seedy past. It was the Seattle Gonstead Seminar, if I'm correct, Dr. Thorpe, that you and Tom Sherman, wherever Tom is at, probably up in the bar, you guys were knocking back a few. I can't be too serious for too long, okay? So they were knocking back a few, I don't know if it was a girly bar thing. I don't know if you guys told me that, but anyway, you were knocking back a few, and you just decided, well, what the heck? Let's just start a society, And so all of a sudden, next thing you know, this ball is rolling. And this nucleus of group, we're from California, we're all a little nutty and nuts and berries. And so anyway, this group is kind of in this Monterey area. And, sure enough, there was that Dr. Thornton, and there was this, Dr. Nelson. And pretty soon they started up this society, and they're on the board of directors. And, Richard becomes president, and Nelson becomes president. And we've been trying for years to get this guy named Stephen Tanaka, to get on the board of directors, but this man will not join us yet. He likes to stay back and take care of the Monterey group, and he has really been quite often the heart and the soul of that particular society. In probably the last 10 years, individuals like he and Dr. Martin, and we've got Dr. Schwartz and Dr. Johnson here, and there's just a whole host of them. There's approximately 9 of them that have really breathed life into this GCSS on a state level. These men and women have dedicated themselves to putting on workshops on an annual basis. They have touched, just by themselves, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students. Talk about when you build it, they will come. I mean, these students will come up on a weekend and, spend a week in workshop, and then the money that these guys raise, turn around and they would keep donating it. They have donated this thousands of dollars to our research program. Just the last few years, Dr. Tanaka has had a real burning mission to bring chiropractic, Gonstead chiropractic, to different parts of the world, and the El Salvador team comes basically from the Monterey group, and they have helped support that, and they bring the students from California down there and touch many, many lives. And so these men and women have really done an extensive amount of work, and if it really wasn't for maybe a nucleus like these guys, one, GCSS probably would not have been started, over a decade ago, and we probably wouldn't have some of the colleges that were touched the way they have been. And so at this particular time, we would like to acknowledge those men and women. Many of them could not be here this evening, but we will announce them afterwards. But I'd like to have Dr. Randall Johnson come up and receive his award from Dr. Heshon here. You bet. I don't need to. Dr. Charles Martin. Toss back a few, Dr. Richard Thornton. Seattle, though, wasn't it? I got you a smile. And some of the other individuals that we would like to announce, Dr. Adam Schwartz, Dr. Stephen Tanaka, Dr. David Curry, Dr. Peter Thibodeau, Dr. Charles Nelson, and Dr. Jeannie Taylor. All right, you can carry that. You bet. So I get to do the next thing? I'm excited. I can tell a story. He didn't let me tell a story. Yeah, I'm on a roll here. By the way, since we started the Field of Dreams 5 years ago, with all the donations, I was kind of adding it up because I was past treasurer, so I could count a little bit. I think we raised close to $200,000 by a committed 75 individuals over the years, and particularly those doctors who stayed with us in the 5-year program. Thank you. God bless you for what you've done. We've been able to really do a lot. The purple textbook would never have come out the way it did. We would have never been able to have kept, giving Dr. Plagger, his monthly paychecks that made the difference between the research, extra funds. And so we appreciate everything that you've done. And those of you who even would like to give just one adjustment a month, by the way, we would appreciate it, whatever you can give. And those of you who can give 2 adjustments, we would like to take our 75 doctors and go to 125, and by doing that, expand our ability to get this research done, and again, just keep moving forward for the right reasons. A few years ago, I don't know, somewhere in some spare time, my dad, it starts with Dad. Dad, can you stand up for a minute, because you really started the story. You're so talkative, Dad. I told you to keep quiet. I did not get it. My mom and Dad, every once in a while they leave us kids and run the practice. I practice with my sister and my brother, and they decided to go to this World Chiropractic Congress or something like that. And so they went to Sydney, Australia, and they were sitting around just having a good time. And they met another lovely couple there, and this couple introduced themselves, and they kind of really hit it off. But this was a chiropractor who can sometime or other maybe tell his story, but probably discouraged at what he was doing. He was actually very good at everything that he did, very academically oriented, great clinical skills. I mean, any course that could be taken, he'd get certified. I mean, acupuncture, colonics, you name it, he could do it. I mean, he was just this gifted man. When he decided to do something, he was going to be the best at whatever he was going to do. but he was really frustrated. He was having some physical problems, and nobody could fix his problem with his neck, and I think it began to radiate down his arm, and he was about ready to give up on chiropractic, not only because I think what it was doing to him physically, but they was discouraged that he wasn't getting the results that he thought he could in his own personal practice. So there was little old Ernst, and this man, by the way, had never heard of this particular technique, and so he says, well, let me fix that. That's my dad, he's Swiss, and he says, let me fix that. So he grabs a hold of that neck, and he palpates the heck out of it, and he says, C6. And he sits there, and he gives it, a good P to A. He sets it, the kingdom come and back. And all of a sudden, this man sees the light. I mean, it just turns on. I mean, that innate just starts flowing, and all of a sudden he realized, I just had a chiropractic orgasm. And he just said, that was it. I've lived and died for this. He says, I need to be able to do that. And so he got excited. He had to tell everybody. And this was starting to fix the problem. And so my parents came back from the States, and my mom, she said, you know what? This guy is excited. We think we've got another one. It's like when you go to church, you think you got another one saved. We think we saved another one in our profession. So now it wasn't my dad who pursued this. My mom's the whip around our office. She's the office manager. She's the drive behind. Holy, she calls up the Gonstead Clinic. She says, I need the chapters. And we don't have them. No, I want the chapters now. I've got somebody in Australia. I think that if we get those chapters to him, we can save another soul. So my mom buys the chapters. Not Dad. Mom buys the chapters. She ships it out to him and says, study these. You can do what Ernst can do if you study these things. And he got all excited about it. He called and says, hey, can I come out and attend a seminar and come visit you? And so I adopted somebody for a week in our practice, and he came around and followed us around our practice. And the only person who ever got away in his whole life calling me a girl, because back there that's actually a compliment. And so and he'd come and follow us around, and we'd do our setups and all these kind of things. And so we were sitting there, probably putting back a few beers ourselves, and we said, what we have to do is we have to come out to Australia and just kind of let's kick some butt out there. We're doing a pretty good job here in the States. And so we had this big dream. Well, what we'll do is we'll get a group of people. They'll just won't say no to me if I ask, and we're just going to come out to Australia. So we committed to do a seminar. I said, you fill the room, we'll bring the people. We're going to talk to Dr. Alex, and we're going to talk to Dr. Doug, and we're going to talk to a lot of people, Dr. Kamada, and we're going to bring a group of people. And not only that, we're going to contact diplomats, and we're going to bring them out too, and we're going to really give you a hands-on experience. And so 9 months later, we came out and we put on, would be the first in a series of many Gonstead seminars. And as a result of that one seminar in 1990, started the Gonstead Clinical Study Society in Australia. This particular individual with 2 other doctors decided to pass it on and start the Australian GCSS. As a result of that, they have put on every consecutive year thereafter the largest technique seminar to ever be given in Australia. Not only that, but they've gone a step further, and what they have done is been able to teach it in the university, to bring the instructors. They have now passed 7 diplomats. They have 4 fellows. They put out a journal to up to 400 to 500 of their newsletters go out on a quarterly basis, and they have really expanded this program. Now, because of their seminar, bringing out Dr. Alex, Dr. Doug, and the rest of the crew, they have people from the Asian countries coming, from Korea, from Singapore, and all the rest, and they're bringing these people in. Because you see, we think the frontier is Europe, and by the way, that's going to happen next, but the frontier is east. We've got to point that direction, because there's millions of people that have never been touched, one by chiropractic, and they don't know anything about this click-click machine. We're going to put their hands on them, and this particular individual is going to have a great influence to that. And this individual, which is going to be given a few minutes of chat from Dr. Alex Cox, I would like Alex to come up and to give a short presentation on our dear friend Dr. Peter Walters before we give him the next honor.
This is the presentation of the C.S. Gonstead Award. You didn't mention that, you did everything else.
All right.
This fellow has become a very personal friend of my family, myself, Dr. Doug, But mainly of all things, he's been a very personal friend of Gonstead Chiropractic. And as Claudia mentioned, he has been the start of the CS Gonstead system in Australia. He has built it into a tremendous, large organization. And at this time, after Claudia took the whole story out of my tales, we have to present this man with the CS Gonstead Award, Dr. Peter Walters. And listen to this now, Sydney, Australia.
Proudly honors Peter Walters, DC, the GCS Gonstead Lifetime Achievement Award, our highest recognition for your dedication to expand the Gonstead system in Australia, 1997.
To make a special speech down here about what's happening in Australia, and I think it's very appropriate if he can accept the award if he wants to, but the main thing is to tell you what goes on in Australia with the CS Gonstead system. Dr. Walters.
Well, thank you very much. If I've got a strange accent, it's nerves. A couple of good friends of mine, colleagues, we came to Mount Horeb in 1989. We thought we'd sneak in and sneak out, but we were caught. And we were given a few gins, and I think they conned me into setting this up in Australia somewhere along the line. I thought I'd just duck over for a meeting with Roger tomorrow night, and I'd sneak in this weekend and sneak out again. But you've caught me again. This award only comes because of a lot of people, and you can't do something like we've done in Australia without great support. And the first two I must mention, of course, are my good friends that came with me, Dr. Peter Ball and Lindsay Collins. And we just hit it off well and thought, well, Australia needs it, and we did it. And Australia did need it, desperately, and I know a lot of countries need it. I don't know how you guys can keep up with so many colleges here in the States. It's an awesome task. We've only got 2 universities that teach chiropractic, so it's pretty simple. But the nice part about it, the seminars that Dr. Alex and Doug present, Dr. Alex and John have been presenting consistently year in, year out. And in the early stages, Dr. James Stoner and Dr. Doug Cox came out as well. And we have, since 1990, we've put on 9 seminars with their help. And every year it's been the biggest technique seminar in the country. The last 3 years we've got over 200 in attendance. I'm going to have to wet my whistle. And by getting over 200, it represents 10% of the total chiropractic and student population in the country we get each year. So we're pretty happy with what we've been achieving. We happened to twist Alex's arm, and we've made a video so that for generations to come, my son's sitting at the table here, and when his grandchildren and Tim's grandchildren finally become chiropractors, we've got the technique that will be the Bible. It's all been demonstrated on that video, so we aim to stick close to the Mount Horeb line for generations to come by doing that. We produced a newsletter, and we've got Dr. Tim Free here at the moment. Put your hand up, Tim. He's the guy running around with the baby. Tim's a great up-and-coming chiropractor, and he's a diplomat in GCSS Australia. I've got my son, Simon, there, stick your hand up, son. And Dave Leach, they graduated together, and they both spent time with Alex, and they're the shining lights. Those 3 guys are the future, along with some others we've got back home, and they're going to carry the flag long after I've disappeared off the scene. And but I think, really this award, it all goes back to Ernst Enrique and Claudia, who were great support in the early stages for us to pursue our ambitious aims to get GCSS running. And I think the most consistent people, when you fly over from Australia like I've just done, it's a hell of a trip. It's about 24 hours by the time you get connections, and you're sitting in a plane with your knees jammed up inside. Oh, I'm not into colonics. And your neck's just about falling off trying to hold it steady so you don't wake up with a torticollis. And they keep waking you up just as your time zone gets you into sleep, and they want to wake you up with breakfast or watch another movie. There are two guys that have done it every year, Dr. Alex Cox and Dr. John Cox, and I really think, I wouldn't have got this without you two guys. So thank you very much. And look, thank you very much for saying thank you, everybody. I didn't come here for this, and it's knocked me off my feet a bit, so thank you very much. The last seminar we had students and chiropractors from Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and Singapore and Indonesia. And some of those are studying in Australia. And the two from Korea, one was a gynecologist, and her husband was a general practitioner, a medical practitioner. Okay. And it was rather interesting when John was aptly describing in the technique class about babies when they come out, as he does so well. And then the doctor grabs them by the neck, rotates, pulls them out, and creates a subluxation. And this was part of his preamble into the occiput, atlas, all that sort of thing. And she just sat there and she just agreed with everything he was saying, just nodded all the way. And they were so excited about the fact that chiropractic could fix all these problems, the cradle cap and the colic, etc., etc. Then we had, they're all asking for us to hold seminars, of course. And then, you're right. Sorry, James. And then, yes, you'll never become a member. And after that we had, at the end of the seminar, when it was all over, it gets pretty tiring and you think, another, here we go again, all that sort of thing. Poor me, when these guys fly all that way, as if I've got the right ticket plane. But a guy grabbed me, he was from Western Australia, and for those of you who aren't too familiar, Australia's the same geographical size as the USA. So this guy flew 3,500 miles across for this seminar, and he told me at the end of the seminar what a wonderful experience it had been. And when he trained because he loved chiropractic. When he went through his training, he learned Gonstead on the way through. He tried to practice it, but he was isolated. And in Western Australia, you have to be registered to be a chiropractor, but you can become an osteopath just by sticking your shingle up outside your front door. And this guy wasn't trained, but he thought there'd be money in it. And he did big rotation adjustments, and he'd now killed 3 people in that town. In came activator practitioners, and they networked very well. They spread the word so hard that chiropractic adjustments were dangerous, that this guy's practice really suffered. He was ridiculed in town. These activator people were getting into big programs, and really a smooth, slick operation. And he became quite stressed and became quite ill. And when he came to the seminar, he had just come back from 11 weeks out of his practice. His wife and he went away for a break, and he was not well. And he got to the Gonsteads, he got back home actually, and he saw our brochure. He decided he would go and try and find out what it was that he used to love. And at the end of the seminar, he was telling me how much he'd fallen back in love with chiropractic and how good he felt about chiropractic. This guy was almost in tears telling me about how he's going to go back, he's going to teach people how to be good chiropractors, and he was going to stand proud and tall with what he did. And he said if it hadn't been for that original taste of Gonstead that he got years ago, and if he hadn't had the opportunity to come back and experience it again, he probably would have walked out of chiropractic and broken man. So that was pretty nice, because that guy was genuine. And and when people come up to you like that, it makes you feel, well, it's all worthwhile. So when I say this belongs to a lot of people, I really mean it. Maybe it goes right back to Dr. Dick Thornton, and where's Tom? Sure. Where is it? Not yet? Go to the bar? Or flying his plate. But you know, you guys have started something that you probably didn't realise would go that far. And I think the vision is we've got to get it to UK, Japan, we've got to get it to South Africa. It's there waiting. We've got to take real chiropractic out to everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Better than mine.
Wow. You know, Gonstead has a webpage, www.gonstead.com. But we get email, and information superhighway it goes right through my office. It amazes me. So for the Gonstead system, I mean. And we've got a number of emails from Australia after the seminar that they just did down there, from Brisbane and Melbourne, and they were just overwhelmed, students and doctor alike, that had emailed us and said how much it had meant to them, how much it changed their lives. One person said that it improved their health tremendously, and asked Dr. Alex through me how often their T10 should get adjusted. So he said sparingly was his advice. So, but anyway, I wanted to share that with you as well. So that concludes our awards presentation, but you know what? I think we need to talk a little bit about chiropractic now, if you all want to hang around just a bit. And we could call it chiropractic philosophy, but to me it's just chiropractic. It's the power of setting a vertebra that needs to be set and releasing pressure on a nerve, and the body starts to heal itself. To me, that's what philosophy is all about. And that's the motivation that really keeps you going every day. But Dr. Alex has said once, in a child, when you adjust them, if you're on the wrong segment, the difference between the right vertebra and the one that you may be adjusting may only be like 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. But that can make a tremendous difference in what happens to that child. So what I'd like to do is have people share, whether you come up here, maybe you can just stand up and talk, or however you feel comfortable doing it. If you're like me, you probably don't feel comfortable standing up and talking about it. But I wanted to share with you, just in case it came to my mind, was a boy that's 9 years old, he came into my practice, and his main complaint was that he drooled all the time. He was in, I guess he was in 3rd grade, and all of his classmates made fun of him all the time. He drooled, and he had kind of a paralysis on one side of his face, and I found his atlas, so I adjusted it. You know what? Nothing happened. So I persisted with that because that's where I was finding the signs of subluxation, using the 5 criteria, and he wasn't really getting better. So one day I stopped, I looked at his film, I analyzed it again, I looked at it as we're taught to do here at the Gonstead seminar, and then I used the instrument, I repeatedly, I just kept checking them and checking them, and then I did some static palpation, just real slow and carefully, motion palpation, and then I did some visualization, which you see is my weak leg in the Gonstead system. And then again, I went back to his x-ray and looked at it again. But you know what I found was his condyle, and I adjusted that, and within 3 visits, it started drying up. And the most unusual thing about this case in my mind, because all of us see those cases all the time, I think, at least from time to time, is that in our state, we had a system called KinCare, which is like, it's not Medicare, but what's it called? Medicaid, that's it. Isn't that some system? I think it's bankrupt in our country. But anyway, I've discontinued my participation in that program, and now I just, because that family can't afford to pay, I'm not just building myself up, but I just don't charge them. And actually, I have his mother do something for us, so there's an exchange of value for our services. Because I really, at this time of my life, I don't believe we ought to always give people something that's free. I think there should be some exchange of value. But anyway, to make a long story short, just moving from his atlas up to his condyle, which I don't know in his small, body what that distance is, but it's not much, but it made a tremendous difference in his life. But again, the medical doctor sent him down, and now they're sending us more patients all the time. So to me, that's a help, because we're going to be able to help more people up in these mountains. And all we have up there is really our reputation, because it's a very small community. But our practice has really been expanding, and mainly because in my own heart, I've just backed away from thinking about practice management and all that stuff and just focusing on each patient and trying to find their subluxation. And as you all know, that just makes your work much more effective. And I've been in practice 17 years, and within the last 2 weeks, I've lightened up on my static palpation, just try to feel more subtle changes, find the subluxation the way I normally do and lighten up. And then also when I set up on somebody to contact very much lighter, and which is what I learned here at the Gonstead seminar, but you know what, it's finally sinking into my head, and it's made a tremendous difference in the comfort to the patient, and also the depth of the set. It's just amazing to me. So that's all I have to share, but Jay Parker, one of our board members, has a case that that's under his care right now of a young man that has strabismus where his eyes are crossed and just really we're moving all around. So I'd like you to come up and share that, and I don't really want to, but I'd appreciate it because I think people can help that. One of the reasons I want him to do this is because his mother works at his front desk right here, and she told him about this young man in his office, and he went out into the reception room and got him and took him back and checked him. And what I'm telling my patients is, I want you to bring me people that are sick. That doesn't mean that people that don't have symptoms don't have a subluxation, because a lot of them do. But that's the people that I want in my practice, are people that are sick, so we can start having that. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Dr. Roger. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we had some terrific philosophy, art, and science today with 3 mini lectures by terrific fellows at the end of the regular seminar. Dr. Tom Sherman, who I don't know where he is, I guess everybody else does. But the 2 California boys, Dr. Gold and Dr. Thornton, who did a terrific job and really helped us out. And I'd really like to acknowledge that if they could stand up for us. Sometimes I think your life comes full circle. Things happen and change. And I was one of those people who was a pre-med major headed for you-know-where. When I met Dr. Juan from South Weymouth, Massachusetts. And one of the first chiropractic stories I ever heard was from him, was from a woman he was taking care of, and she brought her child in who had strabismus, converging strabismus. And he fixed that particular child. And I figured, well, that's what chiropractic can help. In May of 1997, this past May, I got one. And it was the same situation. I was taking care of the boy's mom, and he was 6 years old, and he was in my waiting room. I went out and looked at him, and he had strabismus bilaterally. And I did a complete workup on him with a set of films. I thought that was very, very important. And he's had 9 adjustments between May and the middle of August of 1997, and the problem is almost completely corrected. And for anybody that's interested, I have pre and post pictures that I've taken, Polaroid type pictures that I've kind of been carrying around this weekend that I thought were really kind of neat and interesting. And I'd be glad to show them to anybody that comes up to me. That's my story. Thank you very much. So who's next? Dr. Rocher?
Oh, no. Good night, Irene. So now we're free to go. And I want to thank you very much. But does anybody really have anything that they want to share, or if you don't, that's okay. Dr. Lavelle.
I want to share something quickly. I was thinking tonight, just throughout the different presentations about Dr. Walters, Dr. Andre, there's a section in the Bible that talks about being salt and light. And the idea of being salt and light for Christians is to be different than the world, to in some way influence the world and hopefully make it a little bit better place. And I was thinking about the impact that we have within the chiropractic profession. When I was in school, I got hurt, running track in college, and the top orthopedic surgeon at the University of Florida said, cortisone injections in your back and you'll be fine. And this 5'4" new Sherman College graduate did something to my low back and pretty much changed my life. And so I come to chiropractic school, I start looking and start finding, I go to a seminar with kind of charting board, and I start to see a little bit of light. And I come up here and I listen to these people with white hair and Actually, John's getting more white hair now too, but Roger says it's genetic. And I noticed two things about that. One is that they're they just have a power from within. They have a certainty about things. And I think that certainty is in their simplicity. If you think about salt and light, they're very simple things. But they do two things. One is that they are separate and they're different. And what we have in Gonstead system really is separate and distinct. These students will tell you that they're being taught, don't adjust somebody with tropism, don't adjust somebody with a spondylo, don't do this, don't do that. And what do these men do? These men stand up here and say, oh, that's foolish, go ahead and take care of these people. And the other thing about light is that it illuminates, it changes. Salt changes the flavor of things, light changes the whole appearance of the room. And that's what these men have done as well. They've changed, they've given each of us hope. And you think about the things that we do every day that we take for granted that we get to do. My pediatric story, my first year in practice, I had a mom in and I was taking care of her for something, I don't even remember what, but I said, I want to see your mom. She said, well, I can't, my son's scheduled for bowel compaction surgery. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And I said, go home and get him and bring him back. And she said, oh, okay. So she did, and I checked him. I found the third lumbar, and I adjusted it. And that's back in the days when I was just starting to practice, and my wife was at home, and she was seeing for me. And I just happened to pick up the phone, and this lady just screamed, he's had 2 bowel movements, he's had 2 bowel movements. I said, oh, slow down. And it was his mom. She said within 2 hours that he had 2 bowel movements and had completely evacuated the bowel. Now, how was I able to do that? I was able to do that because these men shared a little of their salt, shared a little of their life with me. It's like Ernst did with Peter. Now, Peter's done with other men as well. And so I want to encourage us for 2 things. One is to be salt and light, to be men and women that change, that influence others, and that is to remain pure. We recertified diplomates today, and it's great to see guys that are really doing the work and doing it well. We also spent about an hour and a half with 4 of us up there just beating on each other about changing our technique, improving this, and getting this better. And, I came out of that hour and a half, I think, a better chiropractor. And I think the more that we do that, the more that we say, you should change your line of drive a little bit, or you should take your x-ray a little bit different here. What it does is it continually sets the standard a little bit higher. That's all I have to say.
I got to try to go without the mic. Can you hear me okay? I have a few stories, and some of my students have heard these, and we haven't. This touched me in many different ways. My first graduate, I'm from chiropractic grant. My grandpa was a 1924 graduate, and grandpa practiced hedo technique. Oh, you're familiar with hedo technique? Hit every darn one family show, we got through that. And it's a real effective system. You don't have to worry about taking off shirts or coats or anything. Just lie down on the table. And of course, the neck was extension rotation in a prone position. And you had to go both ways. And they kind of got both PSSs and pump. Well, that was my concept of chiropractic. And I didn't know anything better. Came to Palmer and I found out, well, first off, those things that we feel. Grandpa had most spines in the office. I always thought it was the round parts that you felt from the backside. I thought the pointed parts were for hanging organs on or something like that. So I had a hell of a time with spinal anatomy when I first started Palmer. It took me 3 months to figure out which way the spine was going. So anyhow, my career went on. I eventually graduated from Palmer and I took a temporary teaching job to get my Illinois license. I just celebrated the 24th anniversary of a temporary job of teaching. I still practice so I can afford to teach. Some of you educators can appreciate that. And when I started, I have to, I'm not an administrator. I'm not a chancellor. And so I started practice. I did the hedo technique. And like I said, very effective, Just, go down the high-low table. And I was a hypocrite. I was teaching guys at Palmer College. And we still have hypocrites in our education system. And then NCMIC, the malpractice insurer, sent out a flyer, said, you're not covered for any treatment rendered through clothing. Oh, man, they should take off their coats. How am I going to deal with this? Well, I was moving to a new office location at that time. First office, if you want to turn to the first office, you know, you just turn around. I had 6 stacked chairs and adjusted. Another doctor was my x-ray. So we moved to a second office, 1,500 square feet. We're now at 3,100 square feet. So I just worked on it. You can only see 150 patients a week. Working on that. So we've got to do better. So anyhow, I thought this would be perfect. With the new practice, we sent out a flyer. At this new office location, we're going to be using the latest in scientific instrumentation. MCM, 1924. Because I had a neuroscope. We had to buy one when I was a student. Had one sitting on a closet shelf. I thought, this is great. With this new instrumentation, scientific instrumentation, you'll have, the females will have to put on a gown or wear something that's on the back. We don't have to move their coat. So that's great. So they come in, and I had to run it up the neck, run down. Get on the table. So now I was covered by malpractice, and did I need it? Yeah. I needed it. I needed it greatly. Well, there are some patients who weren't getting results. Now, how was I measuring results at that time? Symptoms, right? I didn't have, you think I was doing pre and post x-rays? Great. Yeah, how many patients did I have? Oh, good week we probably had 12, you know, at that time. No, sometimes we got up to 15. But I was good at solitaire. I was a great solitaire player. Well, I had some people who wouldn't get results. Again, measured by symptoms only. I didn't have anything. I thought, well, maybe there is something to this. So I started slowing down and run the instrument a little bit. And I might find one or two, but not good at it. I mean, back when I went to school, you know, I mean, we learned to run behind our back, underneath your leg, you know, blindfold. I could run the instrument well, so I knew I was looking. And those people, I find one or two breaks. Oh, yeah. Just adjust one or two things. It's kind of radical going from 24 down to 2, you know. So I thought, well, 3. Oh, cervical, thoracic, lumbar, you know, you at least hit one from each region. Yeah, I did that. And the results, again, by the only way I knew how to measure at that time, to really skyrocket. And then the data really changed my life. And I got a similar spree from these kids. Otherwise, I'd never been up here. 1974 was the first time. Then I decided to practice chiropractic, so I was taught find myself things. Fix it. You know. And started, if there was one break, I adjust 1 second. If there's 2, I adjust 2. You talk about results. You know, and you know, Dr. Gonstead said it many times. You know, if you get results, okay, they'll say just enter referral. And that's how your practice grows. Because that year we moved to the new office, we were eliminated from the yellow pages. Because they told us we were going to have the same phone, different phone number, new address. Moved in October, the phone book comes out in November. I wasn't in the yellow pages. I wasn't in the white pages. They took my home phone out. I mean, I didn't move my house. I couldn't call directory assistance to get me. So for 1 year, I didn't exist. And our practice grew leaps and bounds because of the referral. And because of getting sick people well. And that's really nice. This system helped me out a lot. And it's given me a lot more. This was really premature twins. Before that, we had a premature daughter, born in 76, lived 10 months in our hospital. Had a real tough time. And then 3 years later, we had premature twins. Now it's 4 hours. Now it's 3 hours. My son was in the hospital 3 months. My daughter's in the hospital 7 months. She had a lot of breathing. And then she was under oxygen another 2 months at home. She chose when she would eat, she wouldn't breathe. She needed concept, when you eat, you get cyanide, so you have to stick oxygen up the nose. And, so you're twins, you're not supposed to compare them, but do you compare them? Of course, you compare them. So Keith, he's sitting up. Kelly's not sitting up. Keith's standing up. Kelly's still not sitting up. Keith's walking. Kelly's still not sitting up. But, you're in the forest, you don't see the trees. And was I just my kids, of course. And at age 1, the kids were born at University of Iowa hospitals, and University of Iowa had a preemie follow-up program. Age 1, took the kids out for their 1-year inspection. I'm not sure what they're doing. And they do all these tests and everything. They says, well, Dr. Burns, your daughter has CP. I'm confused. All I do is contact point. I'm a chiropractor, especially technique. CP. I said, what's CP? Cerebral palsy. And that hurt, Here my daughter's 1 year old. I said, has this diagnosis. This is the best thing that happened to me. Because at that time, I sat underneath Dr. Gonstead at 8 seminars in Course Valley. And what Dr. Gonstead tells us all, CP, look for the condyle. AS occiput. Son of a buck. I hadn't checked that AS occiput. I had just that poor kid's atlas, left to right, right to left, upside down. I just had everywhere possible. I hadn't looked. So we get home, I check Kelly. Oh, God, it's fixed. It's fixed. We set it. Kelly set up the next day. So we did 2 more adjustments. And Kelly's 18 years old. She's just a regular old kid. She never had cerebral palsy. She just had verbal compensation. So I owe my daughter.
Well, I have nothing more to say except that I wish my wife and my 16-year-old daughter could be here. So we had a long travel day. My daughter fell asleep. My wife had a new dress on to come down here for the day. She just stayed there today. Put her sweats on. But anyway, this has been fantastic. Is anybody else want to come up? I don't know. Anything else to say? No, thank you so much for being here tonight. Have a great